did. I'm going to get my screen up. Let me know, have any of you listened? I love that. I love saying no at work. That is brilliant. I don't think most people love saying no at work, so I absolutely love that. I love saying no at work. Can you imagine if we were all like that? Yes, I love saying no. Listening is really interesting. Yeah, I find it interesting too. Finance Anna says she's going to listen a bit. All good. So I loved it. You bought the book already. Oh, that's nice, Andrea. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about saying no at work. So the way that I've structured this is I've got a few questions for us to sort of reflect on together, and a few quotes that I particularly like from the podcast. I thought we'd share about that. And then I want to go through Sunita's sort of process for how to get better at being defiant. But the first thing that I wanted to know was this word defiance, other than Sam, who loves saying no at work, how do we feel about this word? So I'll be honest, I hadn't listened to the podcast, and I edit the pod sheet that Sarah creates and the copy that goes to all the social that Sarah puts out. I was reading it and I was like, "Ooh, defiance, that's a bit strong." I was like, should I tweak that word? And I was like, oh, don't know. What do we think? What do you think? First thoughts on the word defiance. What does it make you think? Defiance feels like you're standing up against something negative. Yeah. It's initially rebellious. Yeah, Defiance is being a bit of a rebel. Saka had to look it up. Not a common word. Interesting. Carrie's defiance is powerful. The positive framing. Not towing the life. Jess, rebellious, angry, and confrontational. Yeah. It sounds a bit strong. That's where I was. Initially, I was like, oh, it sounds a bit strong. I've got confidence gremlins about being liked, everybody. I don't think I could suddenly just become defiant. Well, that was my thoughts anyway when I was thinking about it. I'm constantly called out for being defiant at work. That's it. I love that. But then guess who's always right when I point out something defiantly? Yeah, and also, like people's perceptions of defiance. So you might be like, well, I'm being clear and confident, and it might be the other person is uncomfortable with confrontation. So they say you're being, like I feel like when you're defiant, there's somebody else involved in this discussion, right? So you could be defiant, but it's their interpretation as well. It's quite interesting. What else have we got? When you use the word, it doesn't feel positive. I think in order for, well, there are actions that we can take based on the podcast episode, but I think probably one of the biggest things is sort of reframing your relationship with the word defiance. That actually is probably like a useful thing. If you want to use the stuff that came out of this podcast, reframing your relationship with the word defiance, I think is a good important thing. We'll see whether you get to it after the end of today, whether you feel like you can. What's this Barbara Kingsolver thing? There's a beautiful Barbara Kingsolver essay where her daughter is being particularly defiant 2-year-old, and she realised she's raising the daughter she's always dreamed of. Oh, if anyone can dig that out, that would be a nice little read. So we've got lots of words here. I'd say, as a child it's bad, but as an adult it's strong. Yeah, we often, conformity is often kind of something that we create. I liked this definition. So on the point of just reframing our relationship with defiance, this was one of the definitions that Sunita talked about on the podcast. Defiance is acting in alignment with your values when there is pressure to do otherwise. I quite like that as a definition. It implies you need to know your values. I mean, intuitively, you might have a sense of them, but I think if you're going to use this as a skill at work, understanding what your values are and feeling clear and confident in them, I think is important. So if you haven't done that, we've got a free toolkit on learning more about what your values are on our website, amazingif.com. And we've also got podcasts on understanding your values and talking about values in teams. So I think if you're sat here thinking, oh, I don't think I am clear and confident in my values, I would suggest that stuff. And we've got lots to help you. But I quite liked this. So if I think about my values are freedom, growth, energy, and achievement. So for me, being defiant might be if I feel like my freedom is being taken away from me, or if I feel like we're doing something which is kind of wrong in terms of the energy that it's creating. So I almost get more comfortable about this when I think it's someone is pressuring me to go against my values. That's the kind of that's the grounds for being defiant. I quite like that. Thanks, Louise, for sharing the tool. That's on there. Second question for you. This is a big one. You might, if you feel uncomfortable sharing this your answer to this with everybody, you could message it to me privately in chat. So if you find Helen Tupper in the chat, you can message it to me privately, and then I can sort of share your reflections, but I will never name you. But the question is, when do you say yes when you want to say no? I also think, who do you say yes to when you want to say no is also an interesting question. So when? Claire says a lot. Yeah. When do you say yes? When do I say yes when I want to say no? I think, and who? Sometimes who might unlock it. When do I say yes when I want to say no? I think sometimes in like sometimes maybe personal situations with family. Actually, with family, I sometimes say it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I want to do this. Um, and when else? Do I say it with Sarah? Sometimes I say yes when I want to say no because I want to make someone happy. I think that, here, there's like a few things for you to reflect on. There's when are you doing it? Who are you most likely to do it with? And why are you doing it? So I would say, uh, I don't want to rock the boat and I want to make someone happy. And that person is probably most likely to be Sarah or my family, probably. I mean, Sarah basically is my family forever. People I don't know well, that's interesting, Ellie. People you don't know well. Harry says that when you want to make someone happy or you're worried about upsetting them. So it doesn't always come from a bad place, does it? Like sometimes we're trying to, keep the peace or keep people happy. But then I guess the point is, and someone said this to me, my mentor said this to me recently, like, compliance can lead to compromising yourself. If you're being sort of compliant when you say yes, when you want to say no, that can lead to you compromising yourself. We'll come on to that in a minute. Saka saying my default is yes when colleagues ask for help, but then I tend to get a bit overwhelmed. So yeah, you're kind of maybe compromising your boundaries, Asaka, in order to say yes to what other people might want. Joe saying about the Who used to be US managers. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting how often. Andrea saying when I'm willing to compromise for something or someone really important, family and close friends when they need me, is not compromising my values. Yeah, I guess it's just is it being nice or is it actually compromising you? I think is probably an interesting thing. I liked this. I got better. I got a bit more comfortable with the word defiance when I heard Sunita say this quote. Defiance is not a personality. It is a practice. So it's not, I'm not being like a defiant person. I'm not being a difficult person. Like if you try not to think about this as a personality trait, actually this is a practice. There are certain situations when I should be more defiant, as in I should act in accordance with my values when there is a pressure to do otherwise. Again, I was like, maybe I can get on board with it if I'm thinking like this. Tracy, one of my saboteurs is pleaser, and I struggled with this until recently. Yeah, I think often, people pleasing. We've done a podcast on people pleasing. Also, just on the point of saboteurs, there is a really good online survey about understanding your saboteurs. It's a free survey. It's a really good one if you haven't done it. Maybe don't know if that's a challenge for Louise to see if she can dig out the saboteur survey. I've forgotten the author of it, but there's like understanding your saboteurs. It's really good. Emma Gannon has also written a book on sabotage, which is useful. Question for you as well. If you are saying yes when you want to say no, what do you think is the cost of your compliance? Yes, Rima. Sherzad, yes, it's that. Thank you. Thanks everyone. But your question back to you. What is the cost of your compliance? What do you think? If you saying yes when you want to say no in whatever situation and with whatever person you're saying that to, what do you think of the cost of that is to you? So Joe saying personal frustration. Earlier we had sorry, I've forgotten who it was, but about being overwhelmed, like you're taking on so much because of it. Time, energy, Steve saying overwhelm as well. Cost of compliance, less time for myself. Yeah, I think I'm doing less of the stuff that I enjoy. I also think I probably do less of the things where I can make a unique impact. Because I'm doing stuff other people want me to do. I'm like an extension of them. Whereas if I do some of the stuff that I want to say yes to, I actually think that's probably where I make the most unique impact. So I'm probably reducing my impact at the same time. Losing control of prioritization. Anna saying I end up doing loads of reactive work. Where's that gone? Moved. And not focus on where I want to channel my skills and my energy. Yeah. I think the cost of compliance is actually pretty big. Yes, you might make people happy in the short term, but actually maybe you're reducing your impact, your energy. And him Fung saying you're slowing down your own development. Yeah, I think it's quite big. I think the cost of compliance is quite big. I often feel less valued and more taken for granted. Yeah, I guess if you've got a pattern of saying yes, then other people, you maybe create the expectation as well. You know, you're kind of reinforcing that for people. Um, I liked what Sunita, will come on to the process in a minute, but I liked what she said about part of this, you know, it's not a personality, it's a practice. I like the fact that she said part of the practice is about making sure that other people can hear you saying no, but also that you can hear yourself saying it. Like you kind of have to get used to you saying no. And so actually starting with some small acts of defiance, quite useful, so that you can just like kind of get used to. She said like, I think it was something like on the podcast, it was like so that your mouth can get used to saying no. You know, like so you can kind of like literally just get used to going, what might this sound like to me? I'm not comfortable with this, or whatever, you know, whatever your statement is. Because it might not be a straight out, no, I refuse to do this. It might not be like that. Like it might just be, I don't think this is something that we should do, or I don't think this is the right thing for us to move forward, or whatever, you know, whatever feels right in your mouth. Andrew saying integrity is one of my values, so compliance is important for me when it's doing the right things, not just particular. I guess integrity is nice, isn't it? Because actually for you, Andrew, integrity, you could say like defiance means you can probably have more integrity if you're being defiant at sometimes when based on the Sunita's definitions. Um, another little quote that I quite liked, I was like, in terms of the cost of compliance, the motivation to do something different, how much creativity can you have if everybody is compliant? Like if we're all conforming and no one's doing anything different, then where's the creativity? Because you know, creativity requires a bit of non-compliance, right? A bit of non-conformity. And again, it depends what you're anchored to, but I really value creativity in myself and other people, and I don't want to limit that. So actually, it made me think about a team. I want a creative team, so I need to encourage a bit of defiance, a bit of non-conformity in the team. I was quite motivated by that. Claire saying no can be empowering. Yeah, listen to Sam. Oh, I love saying no. Quote of the day. I think it's just because it's hard for lots of us, especially with people pleaser. Absolutely, I find this hard. So let's go through Sunita's process, right? Let's walk through. There are 5 steps or stages or whatever elements to the process. I've depicted it in a cycle. I don't know if she meant it to be a cycle, but that's how I've just visualized it. And if we want to become more defiant, these are kind of the processes for us to go through. So part 1. Oh, that's helpful, iPad. It's deleted the parts. Let's see if I can remember them, everybody. Lovely, lovely test of whether this is stuck in my brain. Oh dear, mixed bag, that kind of week. Okay, so the first one, God, this is such a test, everyone. This is putting me really on the spot. So the first one is to identify tension. Identify tension. So if you're going to say no, you kind of have to tune into the tension. So, okay, this is a situation that doesn't feel right for me. And I actually think that's a skill, you know, like to sort of be self-aware enough that you go, this thing I'm feeling is a signal that this situation is compromising my values. Like, you know, to just not just move on. She says that a lot of people at that stage just go, oh well, like, oh well, move on from the moment. And she's saying, no, don't move on from the moment. Like that is your first flag. So kind of get better at sensing the signal that this is a situation that is you are not comfortable with, basically, that you are like, I'm not comfortable with this situation. Number 2, but now we need to acknowledge it. So you've identified, you're like, there's that flag that I feel difficult here. So the next one is about acknowledging it. And she had a few questions here that I thought were really, so acknowledge tension, a few questions here that help you sort of work through this. So the first one was, so who am I? I think this is where you get back to the values. So who am I? Not I am Helen, but who am I? I am a person who values freedom, growth, energy, and achievement. Or if you're, I think it was Andrea, you know, I am a person who values integrity, or whatever you are. But so 3 questions. Who am I? The second one was, what kind of situation is this? So you're sort of assessing, this is a situation with my team, this is a situation with someone in a position of power, whatever it is. And then what does someone like me do in this situation? Just purely based on your values. So someone like me would say, I don't know, whatever it is. At that stage, you're not saying the thing, but you're just sort of going, okay, I'm acknowledging the tension. So the 3 questions to sort of reflect on there. Who am I? What kind of situation is this? And what does someone like me do in this situation? We put those questions in the pod sheet, by the way, in case it's helpful for you. So now we're sort of working through. The next stage is where it gets a little bit trickier, because everything so far has been in your head, right? It's easy to be defiant when it's just in your head. Now you got to say something. So this stage is about vocalizing the tension. So the next one, we don't want that. Vocalize tension. And there was a few sort of statements here that I found useful that Sunita said, in case you want to vocalize attention. So there was the, I'm not comfortable, or it could just be a question. What do you mean by that? Or what are the alternatives that we could consider? So she said, it's not at this stage, it's not about being confrontational. I flat out disagree with that. I definitely know it's not like confrontation. It is, I liked how she said, this is more about curiosity. Like, this is more about curiosity. I'm not comfortable with this. What are the alternatives? Or where did the insight for that come from? Or if we didn't do this, what else could we do? Like, I quite like the initial vocalizing is tension. I also liked what she said about if you can do this part, stage 3, you are more likely to fulfill the whole process, because what this leads to, she talked about cognitive dissonance. So you know where you kind of express an opinion or you say something, it's quite hard for you to go back on that. So if I go, do you know what, I'm not comfortable with the way that we're managing this process, it's quite hard then for me to go back on that and go, oh no, actually I am fine with being really mean to people, or whatever it is. Like, once you've said it out loud, it's harder for you to kind of go back on it. So this is almost like, I think it's quite a soft way of being defiant. Like, think of it as like, what's a sort of a defiant question that I could ask here? I quite like that in the vocalizing. Next one is you gotta kind of move on now to, you've got to express defiance. So I'm gonna put it here. Express defiance. Is that my son?
Yes.
You can go make yourself breakfast, darling. I'm just doing PodPlus with quite a lot of people. Sweetie, it's live. Thanks. There you go. He's in his pajamas, or I'd invite him in to say hello. Right, moving on. Mixed bag. Express tension. So this one is where you say, I do not want to do this. I do not think this is the right thing to do. So here you are being like a bit more explicit. If you think the last one is a question, like a defiance-based question, I think this is more like a statement that you are saying. And her point here was, you've got to keep saying this. That's the bit here. So you say it as a statement, like, I don't want to do this. You listen. I don't want to do this. Joe, thank you. I might need that this week. That's a nice little bit of support. And then final bit is the act of defiance. It's I am not doing it. It's not going to happen. And she said that if you follow the process, so you've gone through these stages, actually this act of defiance almost feels like a relief, because you've already worked your way up to it. You've asked a sort of gently defiant question, you've done a defiant statement, I don't want to do this, and so the final act, you've kind of already eased your way into it. So that's the process. And I wondered whether, for you and your work, maybe thinking about over the next week, what is like a small act of defiance, and that you could experiment with this. Like, don't pick a massive one. Don't pick a flat out argument with your manager. I mean, by all means, if you want to, but I would suggest pick a small thing, like you want to delay a date of a project, or you want to change the way a meeting's run, or something like that. But like, pick something small that doesn't really matter if you don't do the whole thing, but maybe just give it a go, and then and see how you feel about it. So that was my kind of final question to you. What are the actions that we talked about feels most authentic to you? I mean, you might say, Helen, I think I could do the full process, or you might think, I think I could do some sort of defiant questions, or I could try a defiant statement, or I can flat out say, I'm just going to be more defiant. But of the things that we talked about, which of those feels most authentic to you, do you think, what we talked about it? Yeah, Caroline, when I went through this process, I was like, do you know what? If this is what being defiant is, I think I could do it. I think I could do the question, I could say the statement, and then I could probably follow through. Vocalizing the tension, yeah. What other ways could we do this? So I think, yeah, this one, I think about this as a question and this is a statement. That is not what Sunita says, that's my interpretation, but it helped me like go from curiosity to kind of an actual the communication. Acknowledge the tension, Shalini, manage it to value is brilliant. Expressing that tension. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. So that was everything that I was going to say today.